Hello, and thank you for joining me tonight. This video is going to touch on a little bit of color therapy and how to apply it to your day-to-day. Specifically, we're going to be talking about color therapy in pertaining to the aura. Now, the chakra color system, which you'll hear me speak about a lot in a lot of my other videos, which is the Roy G. Biv, red being your root chakra and violet being your crown. It's not to say that those aren't meaningful color applications. In fact, they're very meaningful. And I got this question recently, so I just wanted to differentiate as an energy worker how I distinguish which color system, if that's the right way to say it, I would like to apply. So for me, the way that I approach this, and of course I'm a unique person, this is my way of doing things. It's, everyone might have their own vibe for how they want to handle color therapy, and I don't think that there's a wrong way. If I'm working on a client and one of their chakras is off, let's take their throat chakra for example, I'm going to focus on blue and balancing their throat chakra. I mean, it could be a different color depending on whether I want to bring the energy up or slow the energy down a little bit if it's overactivated. But for the most part, we'll say that blue is the color for the throat chakra. Now, during a session, I will work within the color systems of the chakras when they are internal, when I'm trying to focus the energy within their body to be representative of the appropriate color, hence helping to balance and activate these chakras appropriately. When it comes to the aura, however, which you've seen in my other video, has more to do with thoughts and protection, and it's more external. The aura is not within us, it like covers our physical body, whereas the vortexes of the chakras are within our body in a sense. You could say it that way. So that's how I like to apply it when I'm doing my focusing within. Even if I'm meditating myself, I'm focusing on my heart chakra, I'm going to think very green, emerald sort of colors, or maybe pinks, depending on how I'm feeling that day or what I'm inspired to pull up color-wise during the meditation. However, when I'm treating my own aura, I apply a different color system. For example, the Sacral Chakra, which is represented by the color orange, is our emotional center. So if I'm working on someone's inner emotional balance, I would focus on orange. However, if I'm wanting to cleanse them, protect them, and change their way of thinking in a sense to be more emotionally soothed and stable, I would pull out the color, or cast rather, the color blue to protect them energetically, to soothe them and kind of weave them in this basket of soothing blue colors. So that's my example of how the difference between the two color systems, because I think that that's a valid question. You might not know which one to go with. Go with your gut, go with your instinct. Now, I'm going to use my cool eyeball here. This was painted for me by a local artist here in Staten Island named Mona Oman. I'll put a link to her Instagram or Etsy or whatever she has, because she's really awesome if you wanted something custom done. She made this for me all, like, I told her I had an idea and she just came up with this, so I thought that was really cool. But anyway, I'm using this because it has the spectrum, which is amazing. So color therapy. You may have seen that now they make like sunglasses, which are either red or yellow, and they're supposed to help you work on your chakra, your corresponding chakra. Or you may have heard me mention about color therapy or other energy workers or Reiki practitioners or just knowledgeable people who in meditation classes or yoga or anything like that may have spoken to you a little bit about color therapy, and when you're working on a certain chakra to focus on the color that pertains to it, because it'll affect you more. Now, I just want to explain where that idea comes from and how it works necessarily, because I feel like when I learn the premise of how things work, even if it's, in theory, I'm able to apply it a lot more easily. So that's the purpose of this video. All right, so color therapy, let's just take the focusing on a specific color. Now, I'm going to speak on the aura colors because we all know the chakra colors, and I feel like that's something you could Google very easily. I wanted to give you some information that might not be, not that you can't get your hands on it, I mean I did, but just something that isn't as out there, I guess. All right, so let's use the method of protection, which I've said in other videos, just as an example to get us started. If you're traveling, if you're on the subway, if you're on a bus, if you're in your car, if you're walking down the street and you want to, someone sneezes near you, or you're like, have a memory like, oh, you know what, it's cold and flu season. I would love to boost my immunity right now. You know, I wish I had a mask or something I could put on or whatever. If you have something red, which is why wearing a red coat can be very protective, if you have something red, you can focus on that color because it brings it into your, focusing on a color allows it to be visualized more easily. Not everyone has the most vivid imagination, the most vivid skills when it comes to visualization. And that's what's necessary to apply these color aspects to your aura. So the red, you could focus on a really, really bright, I'm going to go with this one, like a really, really bright area of red, and see yourself cast in it. So get the color, see the color, get that shade in your mind and cast your whole body in it to be more protected. All right, so how does this work? Well, it comes from the concept of correspondence, or the principle of correspondence, which is as above, so below, as within, so without, micro and atomic levels, and then like macro cosmic levels. There is always an element of something taking place in a broader scheme as well in a more finer scheme. There's always something that correlates in a more dense version and then in the more subtle version of it. So going back to all the videos that I basically make as of recently have a lot to do with your thoughts and how powerful they are, how thought forms are formed, the power of thinking, the power of thoughts, and how they are things, they are energies, and they exist around us and surround us and interact in our world in ways that we cannot be seen, that we cannot perceive. So since we've already talked about the protection elements or ways to be able to do that in another video, what I want to talk to you about is how to use these color therapies to assist with your thought processes, to assist with lifting you out of either an angry, jealous, depressed, or other low vibratory thought pattern and feeling and emotional reaction, etc. Because those can be hard to get out of. All right, so let's take the example of depression. So let's say when we're like feeling really, really low and lethargic and that depressed, where you just don't care, you're apathetic, you're just, that style of depression, because I do believe depression comes in different forms. It would be beneficial for you to get out of a room that had a lot of black in it, or muddy tones, or those kind of depressing colors. Like, we don't consider them depressing. In fact, I find gray is like one of my favorite colors, so don't get me wrong, and black as well. So I'm not saying that they're going to depress you, but when you're using this as a form of therapy, you want to be very aware of what you're surrounding yourself with and what you're focusing on. You can't necessarily always get yourself into this like bright, pale, beautiful pink, soft, perfect color room that will uplift you. However, you can focus on that color. And if it's something that you can't generate in your mind to focus on and cast yourself in, finding that color in a magazine, online, in your house somewhere, in a flower in nature would be a great way for you to be able to focus on a color and bring it into your mental space. The application of applying color to thoughts, color to healing processes is very old. It's an ancient practice. And a lot of healers that I know today don't necessarily apply it as much as I feel that they should, because it's just so hugely beneficial. So a perfect example, let's say I'm doing a session with a client and we've already communicated that, maybe they've had a session before and we've talked about their third eye and throat being off and having like a negative thing that they're experiencing, or maybe they've shared with me prior to the session that they would like help with a certain area, or sometimes they don't necessarily tell me anything, and just during the session what I pick up on, then I kind of act appropriately. So let's say I'm doing a session, I know what's going on, I can either sense the muddy, like deep mucky greens or kind of dark gross colors, and I want to alter them. Having a strong presence myself and filling my mind and my aura with the colors that I want them to pick up on is very powerful. That's a very powerful healing practice. So, what I would like for you to take from all of this is not only that you can help yourself by focusing on the appropriate color, and there are a myriad of books on aura colors if you're not sure how they work. I tried to give you some clues about the yellow, red, and blue, and you can kind of take those as like the primary. Yellow, intellectual knowledge, red as vitality and health, and blue as emotional and spiritual. And you can kind of see how like mixing them will create these different colors, hence different relations and feelings and emotions and thoughts and whatnot. It's really interesting once you start getting into it. However, you can find this kind of information online. I probably will put out a video pertaining a little bit more to the aura color specifically, but again, that's for a different video. My whole thing that I would like for you to take away from this is being able to use this color therapy methods on yourself when you're feeling negative, when you're feeling it's like as another means for you to start to change your vibration and change your thoughts and change your aura. Because if you can impact your aura, it will impact the rest of your body. It's just as your body and your thoughts impact your aura and change that. So, like I said in a previous video, our thought forms and thoughts are what is kind of constantly changing our aura. You know, we get good news and kind of turns this way, and we get bad news and we feel bad or scared and it starts turning another way. So that comes from within and out, but it also, once our aura has been treated and affected, just like when I do an aura cleansing, it carries down, it creates a wave, and it cleanses and heals and balances in the opposite direction as well. The other thing that I want you to be able to understand is that your thoughts and your actions and your practices, as subtle and gentle as these are very impactful to other people. They're a tool that you can use to be of benefit to other people, to be a benefit to your workplace, to be beneficial to your partner or your children or your parent or a relative or a loved one or someone you're interacting, or just a stranger. You know, like there's lots of times where I've been on the subway and I've seen people like very, you know, you could just tell they're in a bad place, and I just do my thing, and you know, it's a way to impact the energy of a person in a way that of course does no harm. We would never want to use this as a means of manipulation. It's only for the greatest good. So I do also like to begin, and you probably have noticed this when in a lot of our Reiki sessions, I always say for the highest and greatest good, you know, like to do no harm. Not that you could do harm, I don't think you could, but I feel like you're better off just kind of setting that intention for their greatest good, you know, not to manipulate, just to help them. Because you could definitely, and we've done this before unknowingly, have negative thoughts and they spread to other people. It happens all the time. You're in a bad mood, you come home from wherever, you interact with whoever you live with, and you're nasty, and you know, or even if you don't speak to them, your energy, you know, I've had roommates before where like they didn't have to talk to me and they just walked by and I was just like, you know, like, oh, I caught some of that was not good, you know. So it's good to be mindful. It's almost like your carbon footprint in a sense, but not carbon. You know, it's like your energetic footprint and how you're affecting the energy on this planet and of your environment and of the people that you love, and etc. So sorry this was all over the place. I hope that you're able to pick something up from it. Thank you so much for your continued support and love and all the wonderful ways I get to interact with you. I'm truly honored. From the bottom of my heart, as always, namaste.